Welcome to Elevate Your Event, your favorite podcast for transforming fundraising events. Join us weekly for expert tips and creative ideas to make your next event a standout success.
Welcome to Elevate Your Event, the podcast that's all about taking your fundraising game to the next level. This week, Shilpa Alva shares how a party with friends turned into a global nonprofit, Search for Water. From DIY beginnings to high-tech giving, her story is packed with heart and smart strategies you won't want to miss. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome back to the Elevate Your Event podcast. We talk about all the various ways your next fundraising event could be better. And so we've got a really special guest today. I'd love to welcome Shilpa Alva from Search for Water, who has an extensive amount of nonprofit fundraising and specifically event experience. So Shilpa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, give us a little bit of background on your organization, how you got started, what you guys do. I mean, obviously, Search for Water, I assume it's about water, but tell our audience kind of what you guys are after, and then, give us a little bit of a background on how you got started on the fundraising side of it.
Sure. So Search for Water, you're absolutely right. We're a water organization, but we like to say water plus because we believe that it starts with water and our work is beyond water. So it's comprehensive water plus solutions that include sanitation, hygiene, and menstrual health. And that's the foundation of what we do. The way we do it is through community ownership and women-led partnerships. So like working with community-based organizations currently in Haiti, Uganda, and Indonesia, in really remote rural parts of the world where our local partners happen to be the only organizations in partnership with us working on these water plus solutions. And, it starts with water. And when you invest in water infrastructure and education, it leads to improvements in education, health, income, and just like the overall well-being of a community. So that's what we're about. And our journey as an organization, I'm the founder and executive director, and started this organization with a fundraising event because that was, was used to throwing large parties with friends and decided that maybe we could take this network and raise some funds, and just a little bit accidentally, a little bit intentionally, a mix of different things, but it definitely started as an events-based fundraising kind of organization. We've evolved since then, but that's the start of us, yeah.
That's awesome. And I love the water part. I went on a mission trip. I've been there a couple of times to Rwanda, and we did something very similar. We manually built these water filtration systems using parts, and drilling holes in plastic containers and putting pipes together and stuff. But I was able to witness firsthand the impact that bringing clean water to a village can have, and just how desperate these people were for it. And so just applaud what you guys are doing. There's definitely an impact there. And that's fun also, I would imagine, to be able to show the people at your events, like, hey, this is where those funds go. I mean, because we did a lot of videos of these people carrying home their water jugs and, the whole family walking together and proudly using them and whatnot is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And showing people the before and after has been quite powerful as well, because, you've all seen the gushing water out of wells, and just showing people walking to basically, swamps and holes, right, which are springs, alongside animals. That's always quite, I think, moving
with those jerry
for people.
Cans.
Yep, the yellow jerry cans, absolutely.
They tested my fortitude. They made me carry many of those up a very steep hill one day.
I can't do it. I've tried. I've even tried on my head. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When these three African women are walking up the hill with two of them on their head, I was like, okay, the challenge accepted. I'm either going to toss my man card in this dirty water or I'm carrying these two jugs up there. But I was impressed. I mean,
good job. Yeah.
Yeah, I made it. It was good, I have to say. But so tell us about that first event, because you're getting started as an organization and you run this first event. And it sounds like it used to be a party, or you had experience running parties, and now you're running your first fundraiser. So how did it go?
Yeah, so, the background to it is socially, we would host parties just as groups of friends, right? You're in your 20s, you have some money out of, it was in the corporate world. And I definitely got to this early midlife crisis, if you want to call it that, when I was like, hey, we're spending all this money on these parties that are themed and have like several hundred people, and collectively, right, we're spending thousands of dollars. So it wasn't crazy, but at the same point, it did feel wasteful to me, for what end, right? Yes, you have a good time in your 20s, which is important as well. And so just reflecting on that, and then, in my story, in my journey, I was responding or dealing with this calling of like wanting to do something in the world that made a difference and helped communities, right? Because I have privilege, and just sort of married those worlds because had experience, had a network of coworkers and friends, and, thought, why not try this where we host an event to raise money and see if that works. I had no idea what the entire nonprofit fundraising world was like. Did it very naively, which I'm happy about, because I think if I knew about it, I may not have made the choices I did. So quite blindly, it's quite amazing that we exist and have grown since that was our beginning. But yeah, just having no funds, right? Having no sponsors, no network. The very first thing we do is like, why would people give us money? Maybe we should apply for a 501c3. So really came into it, but, from that sort of side door angle, if you want to call it that. And, did get registered before our first event, and just, went out there and hustled, got the first sponsors, right? Got restaurants to donate. It was all our friends that were donating their own stuff, right? Glassware and, using the backs of people's cars and picking things up, and just all hands on deck. And that's still very true to how our events run today, because that's where we came from. But figured out how to do a really beautiful experience without the budget of that experience, right? Yeah. So making sure that we branded well, like that was really important from the very first event. I think our first event was at the Weisman Museum in Minnesota. It's a gorgeous space. We're able to get the space for almost free through a university connection. And we labeled the event, we branded the event Think Water, and we did these beautiful art installations, and our volunteers were dressed up in these vibrant, sort of crazy art exhibits themselves, and crazy makeup. And, we made the Sunday newspaper,
That's awesome.
The lifetime pages. And that was event number one. So that's.
And what year was this?
2008. Long time ago.
2008. Okay, so I assume you start this first event. That's awesome. Yeah, I ran my own first fundraiser 2006. So back then, 2008, what was this all manually done? I was silent auction, bid sheets, all that kind of stuff.
Everything was manually done except we had one of our co-founders was BB Long. She was just amazing, computer software engineer. Now she's an executive in that space. But basically, she designed this really cool interactive system that guests could come in and vote where the money would need to go, where we were going to drill the first well, and they could see it on this giant projection. But there was no, she did that herself because she just had the skills to do it.
Yeah.
So that was probably the only technology play, but a pretty big technology play because people could see immediately, basically the guests voted where we would do our first project. And it was our very first one, right? So we were, I guess, willing to give away that authority. We may not do that as much anymore, but yeah, that was.
Were the votes free? Because I tell you, today I'd probably put a price tag on that vote.
I would today as well. We didn't know we could do that. This is our first event, so we're I don't know if we can charge for anything, but so we didn't charge.
Oh my God, I go back to those days, and we say that they were manual, but I've got a lot of that out of my memory banks, I think, at this point. So tell me that first event, or maybe the first few events, what did you learn from it? What were the things that you immediately started to change and evolve based on what you learned after that first one?
Yeah, I think, there's so many elements, right? So we stick on the technology piece for a bit, right? Even this is back in the day when the credit cards were the paper, that you just swipe them. I can't even imagine that was 2008, right?
We called it card on file. You'd swipe it and put it in a manila folder. Yes.
Well, you're probably more organized than us then, right? I don't know where, it's just things like that, right? That existed for the first 3 or 4 years. I don't think this whole credit card swiping thing was until, Yeah, much later, at least for us. So just things like that, right? We were writing down on bid sheets like the auction prices, right, manually, and then like trying to figure that out at the end of the night. I mean, that was a long time, registration, right? Printed out lists where you're checking people and like
Off
off
the
the
list,
list,
yeah.
like alphabetized. So it sounds crazy even saying this out loud because I can't imagine that those were things that we did. But yeah. So obviously, I think as soon as we realized there was a couple of things. Obviously, we'd go to other events and you'd see technology was available. And then we'd go and try and find the price of that. And we're like, oh, we can't afford it. So I don't think we went in right away with everything. We probably digitized things like, credit cards as fast as we could because that's a payment tool. Then we did it very piecemeal, right? Then we went in and we did something like with the auctions online, but then you could close it online and then do it in person, right? You could continue it. So just as we could afford stuff, registration was an easy thing because you could just use your computers, right? Even if you didn't use systems. So I think that was the first transition from a technology piece. And then I'd say the other things that we started to learn is we went through a period of a few years where we just were in the status quo of like not raising more money at events because, we'd sell tickets. And I think we were at that stage where we thought that tickets was the way to make money. Now we realize it's, I think, just 20% of what we raise at the event, if even, right? So that we monetize people when they come into the room because they're enjoying the experience and they're giving and they're bidding and they're donating.
Right.
We didn't know that, right? That was learning it along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we went through a very similar phase in the beginning. And I would say ticketing aside, because ticketing is ticketing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where the big art versus science debate as it relates to ticketing is what do you charge? And so we went through a phase. I'm curious what you think, where it's like, well, do I want more people here or do I want like that might be paying less money to get in, or do I want less people here that are paying more money to get in? And really where we went back and forth on this. And really what we concluded is, the people that were going to come into the event and spend, like, I would say a decent amount of money typically weren't the people buying our cheapest ticket. So it didn't always make sense to fill the room. When we have a Kentucky Derby party, so it's a little bit different. It's outside with a massive screen, so it's more of a concert. But that's just. I'm curious what your thoughts are as the types of people that you invited to your event, and did that evolve over time as you started to kind of figure out who is the person that's going to come in here and is more likely to donate at a meaningful level?
Yeah, it definitely evolved, right? We went from, and it was also our base, right? When you started in 2008, in my 20s, like it was people who could have, we priced it at what a 20-year-old could afford, right? Like a cocktail party ticket. And we did that for quite a while. And then we started evolving because our base evolved. This is in the US, so I do want to talk about our Dubai events in a moment. But in the US, so we evolved to include like a dinner, like a VIP portion. And today our event is actually quite similar. It continues to evolve because we continue to have more people at the VIP portion, but we haven't sort of made it inaccessible for the younger people, I guess, or people who want that lower point. And it's important because the VIP is still an event in its own. That's the dinner. So we start with the dinner, which is that experience, and it's curated and, it's more formal, but still has that sort of fun, element that is very important to us. And then it turns into a party later, right? So you have 2.5 hours, which is the dinner experience. And then it opens up to the lower cost ticket. And we've done this sort of format in the US, and it's worked for us because then everybody likes that hyped up like vibe, and it's more energetic because that's what the rest of the guests bring in, right? And then you move to the DJ and there's like a different experience. So we've sort of had this two-part event in a single event.
That's fascinating.
That's what we currently do in the US.
So, so as that relates, you're still capturing, I mean, I like that. So you've got, kind of that, fun, kind of, I wouldn't call it an after party, but kind of the after event, after dinner, broader experience, lower price ticket, get more people into the room. And I would imagine, I mean, these are people that one day will probably show up at your VIP dinner. So you're just introducing yourselves to them. When you get to that point of the evening, how are you promoting the charity and the cause at that point? Or is that just moved more into party mode?
No, so we do and this keeps evolving. This year will be different from last year because it really depends on who's in the room. But we do, like I would speak, I address the guests at the dinner, and there's a formal speaking thing, and there's more, there's more connection to the work. There's like a, more strategic sort of, you're invited into the vision of the organization. Like that's what the dinner part is. I even, the dinner in the US, it's still at the point where I can walk over to every table. Board members walk over to every table, right? We make sure that we're greeting people. It's very personal. And then when it switches to the other part, we do stop the party and turn the lights on and close the bars at a certain time in the evening. And we then that's when we play our video. That's the more like sort of marketing production. We play a beautiful video. I will speak again. And then we do another ask and we go through the levels. It's a more tiered ask. So, so we do it twice, but I don't say the same thing. Like it's a different conversation, and we don't do the marketing video. I guess in the first one, that's like you just have more people in the room and a little bit more alcohol involved and things like that. So it's a little more boisterous, I guess, from that perspective. So you need more pomp, I guess, to get the attention. So it's a little bit of a different vibe for the second part, which happens at 10 p.m. versus the first one happening at 7:30, right?
Right. And I know you use technology, and we'll come back to that here in a second about where that's worked and not worked. Is technology part of your ask, or is this something manual in the room?
It is. It's a mix. So because of when we do it at the cocktail part, we can't do the traditional paddle raise because they're not at tables and it's a little harder to manage. But we have people, we do this thing where it's continued to evolve. So I'm not sure what it will look like this year, but we've been doing this process where when someone raises their hand at, let's just say, the $10,000 level, they walk over to the bar, get a glass of champagne or a non-alcoholic equivalent, and they swipe their cards on their account, we just get their name. So we collect the money right there, and then they get this blue light that indicates that they've donated, and then we just go through the levels like that, and we basically in about 15 minutes have gone through 5 different giving levels and collected as much of that money as possible. And then, of course, there's at the lower levels, because I think our last level is like $100, then you get a longer line, but then you just open up everything again. But yeah, we have this pause part of the evening where it's quite embarrassing, I guess, if you don't raise your hand. Maybe let's just say that. So it's very...
You don't have a light. I've been to a party where they did this, and I got my whatever color light for the level I donated at. And that was kind of fun. Like everybody, and then they're walking around on their lapel. It's like, oh, I know what you donated.
Exactly.
I think that's kind of cool. Let me ask you though. So just curious. So the person who donates $10,000, are they getting a nicer glass of wine than the person who donates $100?
No, and actually we don't even change the color of light, so we don't distinguish that way. For us, it's just, are you giving? So everybody just gets and it's a blue light for us, and that's what everyone gets.
This charity that I went to, they definitely distinguished on the lights. You have to have that debate. It's so funny because there's the people who think that that's impersonal and insensitive, and others that think it drives behavior. I don't know. There's Americans are competitive. You know that. So. Who knows? I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that either way. I think there's different ways you do it. But the second ask. So that was the first one, right? Like
the first ones. The dinner is a softer one. We might be changing that this year, but it's like we inform them what the giving levels are. If you're not staying for the party, because some of those people may not stay, right? Like are in downtown Chicago, like depends, right, on where they're coming from as well, and that donor base. And so that audience, if they're not going to stay, would hopefully just be giving us, ensuring they would donate regardless, right? That's the hope.
Right.
So they're just told that there's an ask coming, but the main ask is done. Like the hard one is done when everybody's in the room. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I see for us, and I would say we tell our clients this as well. I mean, across the board, you've got your ask because there's a collection of people in the room that are just going to be moved or willing or know you well enough. They're going to go donate. Okay. But I assume you have an auction.
Yes, we do as well. Yeah.
Do you have a live and silent or just a silent?
So the auction is silent. We have done in Dubai, we've done live auctions with the pieces there, but we've intentionally not done the live auction in the US because we'd rather ask for that same level of money for a program,
Right.
versus
Versus a
giving.
consignment trip.
Exactly. That's exactly it, right? You
Right.
know that. So and we have the people in the room, but we're just trying to get them to raise their hand at the level that just goes 100% to us.
Right.
And that's worked for us so far. But in Dubai, we've tried the live auction piece as well.
So how big is your silent auction at these events?
In
Like
terms
items or
of, oh gosh, there's a lot of items. We don't display them all because it's all digital, and we
Mhm.
have a large participation that's not in the room. So a lot of our money is also raised from people not in the room, because we have a national base. So we use our events in the U.S.
Well, that's
to
great. Has it
to
always been that way?
No, the
No.
pandemic moved us in that direction for sure,
Right.
because we did a virtual event during the pandemic, and then we saw how we were able to engage people. So we have a different marketing and a communication chain. Our board, right, is national. It just again happened after the
Mhm.
pandemic. So we use the silent auction. We get national items. So I would say like over 150 items, and then there's a small portion there of like 10, like 6, 7 to 10 consignment, the high trip sort of
Right.
items. But then the rest is, stuff we've acquired, just the classic, like,
It's a labor of love. Or maybe not the
yeah,
love. Maybe it's a labor.
I know. And it's so interesting because we have this conversation as a board every year. Should we stop doing it because of the amount of work that goes into it? And then we're like, oh, but it's also a way that people have something to do at the event, and it's a way to engage people on the room. So this is a debate that keeps happening this year. It's happening again,
Look,
even though there were some board members who were like, it has to go. So
well, we
let's,
have the same debate, and ironically, it's funny they don't listen to me because they're like, Jeff, you run a mobile bidding software company. Of course, you want an auction. Well, I mean, that's not necessarily just why, but tell me what you think of this. This is kind of my perspective on it, and part of it is yes, they need something to do at the event, and we get that complaint a lot at our Derby event, like we need more things to do, and we have a lot of things to do, but I would say when people come into your event, you want to engage with them, or you need them to engage with you, and you need to give them a variety of ways to do it. Not everybody walking in the door is going to donate through a paddle raise.
great.
Some of them might do a drawing or some other type of game that you might have there. And a silent auction is another way to connect with somebody. And so I just remember when I first started going to events and starting with my kids' preschool, but either way, like any other event out there, if I'm not super connected with the org, I was invited by a friend of mine and I walk in the door, I may not raise my hand in the paddle raise. I may not know the organization well enough to do that, but hey, if there's something cool in that silent auction that I want, I'll go bid in there. And now all of a sudden the charity has my name, my email, and my phone number and my credit card.
Yeah. I agree with you, Jeff. I think that's why we keep doing it. And I'll also add to that, for us, it's also the national base. So it's a way for people to be in the room, and we encourage our board members who are not from the Chicago area to be sending that out. And we can see, I mean, I want to say like 40% maybe of who bid last year was not in the room, right? They tend to drop off because depending on how late you stay up, if you're not at the party or the event.
Right.
So that's an important piece. And I'd say the other piece of it, at least for us, it's a great way to engage Chicago businesses because our work is international.
Yeah.
And so this gives us a presence in the city, right, in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because like connecting with people, like, local business, we get some like really cool stuff. We sometimes invite them depending on the value. And I like that piece too, right? We want to be connected to our community, and that's like a cool way, especially and also if we can promote them, like locally owned shops and businesses that are doing cool things that maybe people have heard about them through us. So there's like another element of that that's obviously not our mission, but if anytime we can do that, I think it's really valuable.
I think all of those are valid and actually really powerful things to think about because, auctions are a lot of work, right? There's no doubt about it, right? They're not the easiest things to put on, but thank God the software makes them a lot easier to handle and manage. But so getting into technology in general, because, technology will empower your ticket sales. It'll empower your guest registration check-in. It'll empower your auction, right? It'll empower your paddle raise to a certain extent, depending on how you're doing it. And then obviously payments and checkout at the end. So what area, I'm just going to put my, Handbid hat on here for a second. What areas of the technology you use in general, you feel work really well? And what would you love to see companies like Handbid or any of the other companies you're using do in the future to make it easier for you?
I love the seamless, like, if you've registered and we get your credit card at that point that, you don't need to pull out a card throughout the night. Like to me, that's the part that works really well, as long as you have someone's information on file. And donors and guests are getting more used to that, right? Like I think when this technology first came out, even we were nervous to ask for that. And now it's understood. That to me was the game changer, right? Because then you can go spend at anything and you feel like it's one experience and it's, you're not asking for money all the time.
Right.
While you are. I'd say, the issues that we have and the challenges we have are usually like tiny things at the back end, like how easy is it, like, to keep track of what's happening, like kind of volunteer sign in for a guest, right? There's like, you're always going to have some people at the event that are not as technology savvy, even though not everybody's at that same pace, right? Especially some donors who haven't grown up on these systems. And so I think for us, usually how easy is it to like collect silent auction items? Like the front end, I feel like many of the systems are at par. We've usually struggled at like, we want a pretty like system to promote the event, right? We want it to be seamless to collect the silent auction items. Who has it? Where is it? Building the packages, right? Putting in like GPS codes into the, like, we get tons of like, here's a small restaurant, here's a salon, and then you got to spend all this time. Like, is this in the same neighborhood? How do you curate? I'd love, a system that integrated that and says, these are all your items. Here's your package. Like, put these 8 items together because this would be the highest bid.
Because they're all in the same spot.
Yeah. Or like, these are from our other experiences. These are what sell higher, right? Not just 70% of value, right? Like that's what I'd like the next. Maybe it exists. We've not used that yet, but that's what I want. Like,
well, I think it's a fascinating
organize it for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think for 2 reasons, right? One would be it makes your life easier, right? Like, how can you start to suggest bundling of items based on where they're located, or basically the relationship between the items, or the history of your donor base or attendees in terms of what they've bid on? Can you start to give me some recommendations? I think that would be really powerful. At the same time, the goal of that is not just to make your life easier. You want them to generate more revenue.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? I mean, silent auctions are not just there to give people something to do. You should make money in them. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say those are the pain points, the back end stuff, right? And like, just
the intelligence side that you're bringing up, which actually got my brain going about like how will AI moving forward start to facilitate that?
Absolutely.
Because the data is largely there, and what's been interesting, for us at Handbid, but for any of these other companies is like, as you've used a technology platform year over year, it starts to learn more and more, or it starts to at least collect more and more data about you. Unfortunately, I think a lot of these charities out there, they'll just bounce between platforms and leave the data behind. And so I think moving forward in the future, that's going to be harder and harder to do if that data is going to yield the intelligence you're looking for. Right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you came into a platform from scratch, you'd be saying, hey, so which packages should I recommend, or which packages should I put together based on the history of my donor base? And they'll say, well, we don't have a history of your donor base.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're definitely one of those orgs that's moved between systems. It's usually a cost factor, or it's usually maybe we've had an issue with one and not wanting to work on figuring it out. But I will say that the counter, I think that there's definitely, I don't think we'd want to switch systems. Something was working and the price point was right and like it launched us. So I think those would be advantages to an organization like ours if we knew that was like
I think
part
so too.
of it.
And look, I mean, this is still an industry that's evolving in that direction, because I think historically, for a lot of these mobile bidding companies, they've been very transactional. We're just here to facilitate a transaction for you. That's it, right? We're going to facilitate a check-in experience, or we're going to facilitate the bidding experience, or we're going to facilitate the payment. But then over time, like, it's like, hey, I need more intelligence out of these platforms, because that intelligence doesn't exist in my CRMs. Because my CRMs have a history of me and what events I've attended or how much money I've donated, but it doesn't know what I've done at these events.
Right.
Per se. So I think you're leading into something that I think might be the next evolutionary stage of some of these platforms, if they're willing to go there.
Yeah, we would love it. I tell you, like, yeah, because you just know the pain at the back end. And then, yeah, in the end, yeah, you just want to, everyone's, resources are strapped, thin for like nonprofits. And so if you can maximize revenue and ease workload, then you could spend that same time like generating more revenue, right? Like
Right.
that's the story.
Well, and I correlate, I would say guest experience and happiness to revenue as well. And
Great.
so,
I agree.
what's been your experience in general? To me, I think I would say 80 to 90% of the conversations we have with prospects or clients is all around the ticketing, registration, and check-in experience. Is that kind of the same for you guys, or?
I feel like because now we've, been using technology for a while, like that's quite seamless. Like I feel like it's been years since you've had the lines at check-in, right? Like now people are used to the self-check-in and you send things ahead of time, you send the text and like register, so there's all of those steps. So to me, that's not, and of course, maybe we've addressed it, right? So that's seamless. So I don't, for me, I think the pain point and also related to the guest experience is the time we ask for donations. That's a bit clunky for us as well.
Yeah.
And then also checkout, because we also try to, now again, this goes back to a small team. We really try to like, please take your silent auction item home with you. We don't want to mail this. So that's another thing, right? No one wants to come and deal with like getting the, the item at the end of the night. Yeah.
Oh, Shilpa, you need to charge a delivery fee.
We do. But it's just still, and it's still a resource thing. Like how much, no fee is high enough.
I know you have to drag it all home.
Yeah.
I know you have to drag it all home. I get it. And so it's like I can't get rid of the box truck yet. It still needs a drink.
Right.
I totally understand.
So
well, I was
that's
curious
the piece.
So that's interesting because I would say, like at my event, I think we've nailed that. Although I'm going to tell you something we're probably going to try next year. I'm proposing it on checkout. But let's come back to that. So on the check-in process, I think the technology allows for that seamless check-in, that no line thing, if it's used correctly. And I think what I've witnessed at certain events is, organizations saying, I'm not going to bother my donors or my sponsors to fill in this guest information.
We bother them.
Right. I think that's going to be too difficult, so I'm going to just go ahead and leave it blank, or even worse, I'm going to put fake information into the software to try to speed this process up, which absolutely slows it down. And, I would say violates the principle of I want to know who these people are so I can, start a donor relationship with them, and I can't when you put in a bad email. But I'm just curious because, like for us, I think what you're saying is we feel like our donor base is at the point where they're comfortable providing that information, and I feel like for most of the organizations I'm involved with, absolutely true. But I also see a number of organizations I don't think are fully there.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. And so those are the ones I would say you've got good guest information at the door, or if you have facilitated some form of a self-registration, then this problem largely goes away.
Yeah. And we were nervous. Yeah. And Jeff, we were nervous to do that, right? Because I think the first year we're like, I don't know if our guests are going to do it. And so we try. Not everybody does it. So we still have people at the door, like registering people and welcoming them. But we also do, so this whole thing of donor information missing, especially if someone buys a table, we do have, our team members reaching out prior and getting that information. And we're I think annoying about it sometimes, I'm sure, but like we try as much as possible. And then like our network is still like friends of host committee members and board members. So we also have like, who do you know? Like, that's a required field when you buy a ticket. So we'll go after our people, right? We'll be like, this is your friend, like give us their email and phone number, like get it from them, right? So
I love it.
So we do that extra work at the back end. And then, of course, it's not perfect. There's obviously information missing and all of that, but we try to get it as close as possible.
I love it. No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so going back to checkout. So I would say, in most cases, checkout has definitely been solved by this technology issue, right? It used to be the worst part because you had to go manually generate invoices. And now I'd say it's mostly streamlined, except for now you have to get people to come get their stuff.
Yes.
Right? And you have remote bidders, so I get you have a different challenge. One of the things we ran into, because our event, it's a derby party. It starts in the afternoon, and then the horse race in Mountain Time is around 5 p.m. And the Kentucky Derby, for those that don't know, takes around 2 minutes to run. So it's not a very long event. So don't go to the bathroom when they're like lining up. But either way, after that, we do a very short presentation. And then we have a headliner concert band. Okay. And so 2 years ago, the headliner went from like 7 to just shy of 9 o'clock. I would say 8:45, 9. And then we closed the silent auction at 9. We had a lot of complaints that, you know, people who didn't want to listen to the concert didn't want to wait around. And so we moved it up. We moved the closing of the silent auction up this year. And we ran into another issue, which is people got so wrapped up in the concert, they were not paying attention to the auction.
Right.
So in violation of your frustration that you don't want to have to deliver all this stuff, we're actually talking about closing our silent auction the next day, which would be a Sunday.
Wow.
We did this a lot. We did this a lot in COVID because in COVID it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter.
You're already doing it from home. Yeah,
you're all doing it from home anyway. So I got to get you your stuff anyway. And so anyway, this is up for debate. I have a few people that are like, "Well, then you're gonna drive them around and deliver all this stuff." I'm like, I don't know. We're at the venue the next morning cleaning up anyway from like 9 until 1 o'clock. Why don't we just close it at noon or something and tell people to come get their stuff? I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this is going to work?
I think it's worth trying. In Chicago, no one's going to come the next day and get their stuff. So we'd have to mail them, or it comes to my house or a team member's house, and you have, you know, that's what happens. So we first try to get people to pick it up, you know, and then you're just like constantly welcoming people. So we do that. But what I'll say, so what we do, I don't know if you and I'm sure you've experienced as well, we also use the next day to do a second auction for everything that doesn't sell. And we slash the prices. So there's another revenue stream. And we try to use the excitement of the event for that. So like we like closing it that day because, I mean, I guess it's just how we've done in the last couple of years. But I'd be open to think about a new way. But basically, then we release another auction on Sunday through Monday, like 24 hours, and then you get rid of everything else, and there's a whole nother round.
Does it sell? Because usually the stuff that I don't get rid of on Saturday, people don't want on Sunday.
We slash prices to a way to make it sell. So it's not a huge amount of revenue, but it's still like, I mean, at that point, it's free stuff.
It gets it out of your living room, which my wife is always a big fan of.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or the recurring. Do you ever have a recurring item, the one that just keeps coming back because
you just keep putting it back, right? We sometimes have board members who buy the items and then say, we don't want it. I'm like, well, we're putting it back next year, and it keeps going back.
Yeah. I don't know. We're gonna have to come up with like some sort of like a charity swap meet site where we can all swap the items.
You should absolutely do that. Or we can bid on each other's, right, at the end. I don't know.
Something. I mean, it's funny because it's also one of those things where, you know, knowing enough charities, right? We have helped our clients trade for sure.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's awesome.
Because think about it. Like we're in Denver, and like a trip in Chicago would be great. And you could easily get a hotel and some stuff in Chicago.
Yeah.
And we can easily get like a mountain home or something like that in Colorado. And it's not all that thrilling to like go stay in the mountains here when you live here, right? You know what I'm saying? So I think some of those things sometimes work out pretty well. But yes, the Island of Misfit Toys auction. Please submit your best ever charity auction item that has never sold. You know, we should do a blog post on that, James. The top 25 silent auction items that have never sold.
You absolutely should. But the problem is we might be insulting some big donors.
We probably are.
Yeah, because I can name them now, but I don't think I can. So it's like,
well, they're so funny because I was at a client's location in Nashville, not to be named, and she was like, "Hey, do you have any advice for me?" And she pulls out this quilt from her closet, and she says, "We had a board member like hand quilt this, and it is the ugliest thing, and I have to put it in the auction every year, and it never sells, and this is like year 8."
She needs to buy the quilt herself is what needs to happen. I have done that. I have literally purchased items myself to just be like, this has to get up, and then just to like, because it's a big donor or something, and you just make them feel like, so that's the approach there.
Right. Well, this has been fun to talk about events. I tell you what, I mean, like for somebody like you who's run so many of them and you have so much experience under your belt, it's great to get your insights on what's worked for you and what hasn't or whatever. But so tell me a little bit, as we kind of wrap this up, like, where do you see, your event strategy going in the future? Are you going to run more of these? Are you going to just continue to modernize them? You're going to run less? Kind of what's your thought process?
Yeah, so it's not more. It's definitely looking at the same. So we do two. We do one in the US in Chicago, and we do one in Dubai. And really, our goal is to integrate sort of that, to build on and expand like the revenue from the event. So that makes sense. So like, I think there's so much opportunity with some of the high value donors that come to the US event, or like the corporations that they're connected to, right? So that's our next level of like, how do we, go into our events and like expand it, or like even be more strategic about it. So this year, just coincidentally, we're a water organization, and one of the largest water conferences is happening in Chicago the Monday or Sunday after our event. And it happens every 2 years. And we've never strategically planned our event right before, right? The Saturday before. It happened accidentally this time, but now we're being strategic about it. And we're like, oh, we should always do this, because then we can reach out to people in our industry, water companies that are going to be in Chicago from all over the country and the world, and invite them, right? And then that has a corporate play, right? And possibly, maybe a little event that plays off that, maybe, something smaller. So like, how do we take what we're doing and like grow it, right? Like, I think that's what it's about. And then our Dubai base is actually like, so our US event is let's just say roughly like 90% individual, 10% corporate, or 80-20, something like that. And Dubai is the complete opposite. It's 80%, 90% corporate, and 10% individual, where we're getting the money. So obviously there's the opposite opportunity in both of those events, which is exciting. That means we haven't tapped enough of the individual base in Dubai, and we haven't tapped enough of the corporate base here. So we are looking at those kinds of opportunities, like where's the money coming from and how do you build? So it's not more events for us. We think we have a significant opportunity with the existing ones. And of course, technology play is guaranteed. Like, we can't do this, we can't grow without constantly being open to what's out there, changing with AI. Like, we're open. Like, we know that there's only so much, and like we're limited without using technology. So that's a given, I would say.
Right. No, it makes sense. I mean, we're in kind of in a similar boat. I mean, for us at my own charity, like where are our events going? We want to continue to, what we say is, advance the entire user experience end to end. Like, how can technology become a bit of our event concierge at the type of events we have? Because our event is in a massive venue, so it's very spread out. So, how do we take advantage of that? And how can technology help with that? How can it, obviously make us more intelligent, and how can it save us time, to your point?
Yeah.
I mean, these things are a lot of work. And so anything we can do to help us save time, the better. I mean, just the fact that, we don't have to write auction item descriptions anymore is amazing.
Right.
People don't read them anyway, and we spend all this extra time.
Oh my gosh. So much time back in the day.
It's so funny. I mean, well, and I taught my staff this year how to do the TLDR at the top. I'm like, just give me the 5 bullets on like what this thing is. And like, is it 3 nights or 4 nights? And what are the exclusions? And yeah, I can see the photos. I know what the house looks like. Are we staying in it or not? That kind of stuff. But
yeah.
No, it's fascinating. Well, this has been awesome. So thank you so much for, just spending some time with, not just with me, but with our audience to talk about your events and kind of how they've evolved over the years. And we wish you all the luck with Search for Water. I mean, obviously water is it's the source of life. So, what you guys are doing is awesome. It's amazing.
Thank you. And thanks for this opportunity, Jeff.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for attending. And again, Shilpa, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with us. And until next time, happy fundraising.
If you enjoyed our show, please take a moment to leave us a review. You can find us on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Don't forget to subscribe for more great content. And if you're a fan of video, check us out on YouTube. Until next time, happy fundraising.